Before we dive into this one, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment if you think you could solve it before the detectives did, and don't forget to like, because this one will mess with your head. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days when the van crashed through the gates of Greystone Correctional Facility. Guards rushed into the courtyard, weapons raised, only to find a single man stumbling from the wreck, blood on his clothes, wrists scraped raw, eyes wide and empty. He said nothing. Not a single word. That was March 17th, 2009. The man was taken into custody immediately. No ID, no wallet, no phone. The fingerprints came back as no match, not in the FBI database, not in Interpol's. It was as if he'd never existed. They booked him as John Doe 1473. For the first 2 days, he didn't speak, eat, or even look anyone in the eye. Psychiatrists said trauma. The wardens said manipulation. But the guards who had to watch him said something different, something colder. They said every time the lights flickered in the isolation cell, he would lift his head, just slightly, as if he knew it was coming. When Officer Harris delivered his meal on the 3rd night, the man finally moved. He pressed his hand against the glass and whispered 2 words. "Tell her." Harris froze. "Tell who?" he asked, but the man had turned away, eyes fixed on the wall. The next morning, Harris didn't show up for his shift. His car was found abandoned 5 miles away, the keys still in the ignition. Detective Lena Mercer, who had spent a decade unraveling the darkest corners of human cruelty, was assigned to the case. She'd seen killers fake amnesia, victims vanish into new lives, and criminals invent new faces. But something about this man, his silence, his timing, his precision, didn't feel random. She ordered a full search of the van he crashed. The plates were stolen, the chassis scrubbed of VIN numbers. But beneath the passenger seat, they found something, a small metal key wrapped in a strip of linen, stained with what looked like blood. The cloth had a hospital logo, St. Gabriel's Psychiatric Institute, shut down in 1998 after reports of illegal experiments and missing patients. Lena pulled old records. Every name from the Institute's staff and patients had been cataloged, except one. A missing entry in the logbook. Someone who had been admitted under confidential protection. She requested access to sealed archives, but the hospital's former director, Dr. Evelyn Reese, refused. "You're opening something that should stay buried," she warned over the phone. "If that man is who I think he is, none of you are safe." That night, Lena returned to Greystone. She asked to see the silent inmate. Through the reinforced glass, she studied him. Tall, early 40s, eyes gray and distant. He had scars on both wrists and what looked like burn marks on his temples, as if someone had attached electrodes. Lena leaned forward. "Who's her? What did you want Harris to tell her?" For the first time, the man looked directly at her. The kind of stare that made the air in the room tighten. Then, with a raspy voice that hadn't been used in years, he said, "She's still alive." Lena's heart skipped. "Who?" He smiled faintly, as if remembering something too painful to say. "The one they said I killed." The next day, the warden reported that the inmate had been moved, transferred under federal order. Except Lena hadn't approved any transfer. When she checked the logs, the signatures authorizing the move were fakes. The security footage from the night before had been wiped. The transport van's GPS tracker was disabled halfway to the state line. By the time she reached the supposed destination, Blackridge Federal Penitentiary, they had no record of his arrival. The silent inmate was gone. Lena filed a federal alert, suspecting abduction or an inside job. But 2 nights later, she got an envelope slipped under her apartment door. No return address. Inside, a photograph, black and white, slightly burnt at the edges. It showed the same man, the prisoner, standing beside Dr. Evelyn Reese in front of a hospital door labeled Ward 9, restricted patients only. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. "Check the basement." That night, Lena drove to the ruins of St. Gabriel's Institute, the wind howling through broken windows, the smell of mildew thick in the air. She pried open the rusted door to the old basement wing. The steps groaned beneath her boots as she descended into the dark. The beam of her flashlight caught a wall of file cabinets, patient records, case logs, medical instruments still stained with age. She found a cabinet marked Ward 9. Inside were dozens of files labeled only with numbers, no names, no histories. But at the very back, she saw something different. A thick folder labeled with a single word, Project Silence. And inside, a photograph of the same man, dated April 12, 1998. Under his picture, a name was printed. Subject 47, Dr. Adrian Reese. Dr. Evelyn Reese's husband. The man no one could identify wasn't a patient. He was the doctor. Before we continue, if you think you already know who's behind this, hit subscribe. Because the truth about the man they called John Doe 1473 is darker than anyone imagined. Detective Lena Mercer stood frozen in the decaying basement of St. Gabriel's Psychiatric Institute, the name on the old file burning in her mind. Dr. Adrian Reese, the husband of Evelyn Reese, the same woman who had told her to stay away. She flipped through the pages under the flickering flashlight. Medical charts, electroshock treatment records, experimental therapy notes. Each sheet listed the same subject, S47, Cognitive Behavioral Reversal Protocol. But what chilled her most wasn't the science. It was the final entry, scribbled hastily in red ink. Subject reversal failed. Memory wiped. Subject dangerous. Facility lockdown ordered. The last date on the file matched the day St. Gabriel's shut down for good. Lena's heart thudded as she turned another page. Attached was a photo. Adrian Reese, restrained in a chair, electrodes across his temples, a faint smile on his face. Below it, a handwritten note. He wanted to forget what he did, but it worked too well. A sound echoed behind her, the faint creak of metal. Lena spun around, flashlight beams slicing through the dark. Someone was down there. "Who's there?" she shouted. A figure emerged slowly from the shadows, pale, thin, wearing a guard's uniform from Greystone. His name tag read Harris. Lena's breath caught. "Officer Harris? You disappeared. Where have you?" "Shoo," he hissed, raising a trembling hand. His eyes darted toward the stairwell. "They're watching. Always watching. You shouldn't have come here." "Harris, tell me what happened to him. To the prisoner." Harris's voice cracked. He wasn't supposed to remember. They buried the project, destroyed the files, but when he escaped, he started remembering pieces. Faces. Names. Hers. Evelyn. He nodded. She didn't just run the institute. She tested her experiments on him. On her own husband. Lena's stomach turned. Why? To erase what he did. To make him forget the night their daughter died. The flashlight flickered, and in that instant, Harris was gone. The echo of his boots faded into silence. Lena tore through the basement, calling his name, but there was only the hollow hum of wind through broken pipes. Then she noticed something on the far wall, a faint red glow. A security panel, still operational after all these years. One button was flashing. She pressed it. A mechanical click sounded from behind a row of cabinets. A hidden door, rusted and warped, began to creak open. Beyond it, a narrow corridor led deeper underground. The smell of antiseptic and rot hit her at once. Along the walls, faded photographs of patients stared blankly from cracked frames. At the end of the hallway stood a steel door. Etched into the surface, almost invisible under the grime, were the words, Ward 9. Lena pushed it open. The room inside was lined with empty hospital beds, for poles, and shattered glass jars. In the corner, a single chair faced the wall, restraints dangling from its arms. And on the floor beneath it, a trail of dried blood led to a small desk. A videotape sat there. Label, S47, Final Session. Lena slipped it into an old player connected to a dusty monitor. The screen crackled to life. Dr. Evelyn Reese appeared, younger, calm, wearing her white coat. She turned toward the camera. Session 47. Subject, Dr. Adrian Reese. Objective, full memory erasure following homicide trauma. Then the camera shifted, showing Adrian, bound to the chair. His eyes were open but distant. "Adrian," Evelyn said softly. "Do you know who I am?" He smiled faintly. "You're the woman who took everything from me." Her voice shook. "You killed her, Adrian. Our daughter." "You." "I didn't," he whispered. "You did." The screen cut to static. Lena's breath hitched. The room suddenly felt colder. She replayed the tape, but the last few seconds glitched, looping the same moment over and over. "You did. You did. You did." She pulled the tape out and turned it over. Scratched into the plastic casing were two words: "Help me." When she looked up, something new was scrawled across the wall in fresh ink, letters still dripping. "He remembers." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A restricted number. She answered cautiously. "Detective Mercer," came the voice on the other end, calm, measured female. "I warned you not to open that basement." Evelyn Reese. "You've made a mistake," Evelyn said. "He's not the victim you think he is. If he's remembering, he'll come for me. For all of us." "Where is he, Evelyn?" But the line went dead. Moments later, Lena's phone pinged again, a message with an attached image. It showed a highway surveillance still from 2 hours earlier, a man walking barefoot along the edge of the road in the rain. The caption beneath read, "Subject 47 sighting, heading east." Lena felt the weight of the file still in her hand. The key from his van, the one wrapped in blood-stained linen, suddenly made sense. She looked closer at one of the blueprints in the folder and saw a small emblem stamped in the corner. Property of Reese Laboratories. It wasn't just a hospital experiment. It was part of a corporate project, and the man she'd been hunting wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to finish what he started. As thunder rolled above the ruins, Lena whispered to herself, "God help us." But when she turned to leave, she saw it, carved into the inside of the basement door she'd entered through. "I remember now." And just below it, written in shaky handwriting that looked fresh, were 3 words that made her blood run cold. "You're next, Lena. If you've made it this far, you're officially deeper into this case than most detectives ever got." Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next, it's the kind of ending that keeps investigators awake for years. The storm outside raged as Detective Lena Mercer raced down the highway, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. The last message on her phone, "You're next, Lena," burned in her mind. She had one lead left: Reese Laboratories, a biotech research center abandoned 2 decades ago, sitting at the edge of an industrial town that most maps didn't even show anymore. That's where she believed Dr. Adrian Reese, the silent inmate, the ghost of St. Gabriel's, was heading. By the time she arrived, dawn was bleeding into the gray horizon. The lab stood like a mausoleum to forgotten science, windows shattered, vines crawling up its concrete walls, the faint hum of power still alive somewhere deep inside. Someone had restored the electricity. Lena stepped through the warped front doors, her flashlight sweeping across rusted medical tables, broken restraints, and faded blueprints littering the floor. Each page bore the same title: Cognitive Memory Reprogramming, Phase 4. The air smelled of dust and old chemicals. And then she heard it, a voice. Low, trembling, familiar. "Lena." She spun around, gun raised. Standing at the far end of the hallway was Dr. Evelyn Reese, pale, disheveled, and holding something in her shaking hands. A vial, half filled with a clear liquid. "Don't shoot," Evelyn whispered. "He's here." "Where?" Lena demanded. "Where's Adrian?" Evelyn's eyes darted to the corridor behind her. "You have to understand, he wasn't supposed to survive. I tried to fix him, to erase what he did. But the therapy worked backward. It didn't erase the memory, it fractured it. He became everyone he remembered." Lena frowned. "Everyone." Evelyn stepped closer. "Patients, test subjects, even me. Each time he loses control, he becomes one of them. That's why no one could identify him. His face, his mind, kept changing." A sound echoed from deeper inside the building, a slow, dragging shuffle. Lena and Evelyn turned toward it. "Run," Evelyn said. But Lena moved forward instead, down the corridor toward the sound. A door ahead hung open, light flickering from inside. She entered cautiously and froze. The room was lined with mirrors. In the center stood Adrian Reese, barefoot, drenched, his gray eyes reflecting a dozen versions of himself. His wrists were bound in old medical restraints, but they'd been ripped open. "Adrian," Lena said, keeping her voice calm. "It's over. I just need the truth." He turned slowly, his voice soft, almost childlike. "Truth? There is no truth. Only what she made me forget." Evelyn stepped into the doorway, tears in her eyes. "Adrian, please. You remember what happened that night. You killed her, our daughter. You killed Emily." Adrian's expression cracked. Confusion, pain, fury. "No," he whispered. "You told me to say that." "She was sick," Evelyn said, trembling. "You refused to let her go. You tried to fix her, just like your patients. You experimented on her, Adrian." He staggered forward, shaking his head violently.
"No.
You were the one who started the trials. You wanted to erase her pain." The lights flickered again and Lena saw it, the burn scars on both their temples. The same experiment. Both of them had used the memory device. It hit her like a hammer. "You didn't erase his memory," she said softly. "You shared it." Evelyn froze. Adrian looked up, eyes wide. "That's why I remember your voice when I close my eyes. Because it's in my head." He reached for the vial in Evelyn's hand. She backed away, but he moved faster than she expected, grabbing her wrist. "No more lies," he said through gritted teeth. "No more silence." They struggled, a flash of glass, a scream, the vial shattering on the floor. The liquid hissed against the tile, releasing a faint chemical vapor. Evelyn collapsed, clutching her arm, blood mixing with the clear fluid. Lena rushed forward, grabbing her radio. "Officer down. I need." But the signal was dead. Adrian knelt beside Evelyn, his voice breaking. "You tried to erase me, but you couldn't. Because you made me remember you." She coughed, whispering weakly, "You were my greatest mistake." And with that, she went still. The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrian looked at Lena. "It's done." "Not yet," Lena said quietly. "You're coming with me." He smiled faintly, almost peacefully. "No, detective. You're not listening. You already came with me." Lena's confusion deepened until she noticed something impossible. Her reflection in the mirror behind him was flickering. For a moment, it wasn't her face looking back. It was Evelyn's. Her breath caught. "What did you?" Adrian stepped closer, his voice a whisper in the dark. She wanted to transfer her guilt, her memories, into someone else. Someone who could carry it. "You opened the file. You triggered it." Lena's hands began to shake. Fragments of memory flashed in her mind. A girl laughing in a sunlit room, electrodes, the smell of burnt ozone, the word silence. None of it hers. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." Adrian reached out and pressed his hand against hers. "Now you'll remember, too." The lights blew out. When emergency teams arrived hours later, the lab was empty. No sign of Adrian Reese. No sign of Evelyn's body. Just the shattered remains of a mirror and a single word scrawled across the wall in blood. "Transfer complete." Detective Lena Mercer was found unconscious outside, hypothermic but alive. When she woke in the hospital, she couldn't recall her name, her badge number, or how she got there. But when they asked who she was, she smiled faintly and whispered, "My name is Dr. Evelyn Reese." And that's when investigators realized the prisoner no one could identify wasn't the only one who'd lost himself in the silence. Because now, someone new had taken his place. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it.